A lot can happen in a week. Some of it good, some of it bad, some of it downright ugly. When faced with intriguing developments in the week's news, we turn to a rotating panel of non-experts to parse the good, the bad, and the ugly of it all. On today's panel, Vivian Ho, health economist at Rice University and Baylor College of Medicine, Raul Ramos, associate professor of history at the University of Houston, and off-the-cuff political blogger Charles Kuffner. Vivian, Raul, Charles, welcome to Houston Matters.
Thank you for having me.
Panel, Texas Governor Greg Abbott raised $13 million over the last 6 months, and as the Texas Tribune's Patrick Svitek reported Wednesday, Abbott plans to spend it trying to oust fellow Texas Republicans in the House who voted against his school voucher proposals. In announcing the total Wednesday, the governor's campaign manager, Kim Snyder, said in a statement that the governor will use the money to, quote, back strong conservative candidates who support his bold agenda, including expanding school choice. Primarily rural Texas House Republicans joined with House Democrats during the regular session and across 4 special sessions to block legislation that would have let some parents use taxpayer dollars to fund private school costs. In many rural districts, there are no private school options for parents. Governor Abbott's ready to spend to make good on his threat to primary House Republicans who blocked his school voucher plans. Is this good, bad, or ugly? Charles Kuffner, start us off.
I mean, anytime you say Greg Abbott, I'm going to think ugly. So that's where I start off with this.
Ouch.
I mean, look, he's been doing this for I forget how many sessions. And yeah, 1 regular session this year and 4 special sessions. And the answer is still no, for the very obvious and easy to understand reason, as you say, that rural Republicans look at this and say, this doesn't benefit me or my constituents at all. I mean, in a lot of these rural places, the biggest employer is, the public school system. They need good public schools because that's their best opportunity to build economic opportunity. There are also some Republicans who, just see through this as a scam. The experience that we have from other states is that probably 90+% of the benefit is going to go to people who are already sending their kids to schools. Just means they're going to get a break and everyone else is paying for it. This is just another ideological litmus test that is the modern-day Republican Party. It doesn't really have to do with what conservative means anymore. That word just, it means, it means what they want it to mean, and no more and no less. And, I don't know what's going to happen with all that money. Money is a good way to get someone elected. It's not the only way. You're going to have to persuade a lot of voters to vote against their self-interest, and sometimes that works, sometimes it doesn't. But one of the things that led to the downfall of the Democratic Party from being, the hegemon in Texas to what it is now is intra-party ideological splits. Now, that was much more of a conservative versus liberal thing in the 70s and 80s. A lot of formerly conservative Democrats became Republicans. And there's now, thanks in part to Trump, there's a lot of people who used to vote Republican who are pretty solid Democrats. You can't explain what happened in House District 134 or in the old Congressional District 7, Lizzie Fletcher beating John Culberson, without understanding that. So, the optimist in me sees this as a step on the road towards the Republican Party eating itself sufficiently to the point where we can become a 2-party state again. You can call me delusional if you want. It's what gets me through the day. But like I said, Greg Abbott, anything with Greg Abbott is ugly, but that's the small bit of hope that I try to draw on from it.
Okay, good, bad, or ugly, Vivian Ho.
Yeah, I'll agree with Charles, and not just ugly. I'd say it's bad and shameful. And the fact that he is trying to, I'm hoping that a lot of this money is he's directing towards rural districts. Those folks know each other well, and they know who's going to represent them. And so I hope it's $13 million that's wasted. I also feel as though the only reason Governor Abbott is trying to do this is because he's trying to make a statement at a national level because he wants to run for higher office. And this getting vouchers passed is a feather in his cap. It's just so frustrating because when you talk with economists, as I am, you learn there's no free lunch. You take away this funding from public schools, and we're going to suffer in terms of our future workforce. And I already feel as though I see it. We have starved the public education system for so long, and I feel it when I'm traveling. I feel that sort of services are poorly done here in Texas relative to states where there is better funding of education. So this is extremely troubling, and we'll see where it goes next election.
Okay, good, bad, or ugly, Raul Ramos.
Well, it sounds kind of good reading between the lines here because it's, like you said, Vivian, money that's not going to other things like harming immigrants or other kinds of policies that are pretty destructive. When I look at it closely, it's about gerrymandering, isn't it? It's just how there's no accountability as long as everything is gerrymandered the way it is. I think we have a good example of some nuance here in Houston with the last mayoral election where you had essentially Whitmire, who came from that old style where Republicans and Democrats would cooperate in at times. And certainly that was sometimes put as a mark against him as someone who wasn't solidly Democrat, but certainly that got him elected here in Houston. And I feel that along with the voucher sort of true conservatism that's being touted, it's also an attack on the way the state House of Representatives has put Democrats in leadership positions. And that's become the other sort of Republican in name only attack. I think these congressmen who voted against vouchers felt secure enough.
I should say state lawmakers.
State lawmakers.
State representatives, yeah.
Yeah, and just one thing to add is that in addition to Greg Abbott going after a bunch of Republicans in the primaries for not supporting vouchers, you also have Ken Paxton going after a bunch of Republicans in primaries for voting to impeach him. And there's probably some overlap in there, but there's also some places where Paxton is now opposing Abbott in the same race. There's a word that I can't use. It starts with C and rhymes with truck. That is what this all should be called.
Cluck?
It's a 3-syllable word.
Okay. Panel, organizers of Monday's college football playoff championship game at NRG Stadium say the event brought in an estimated 100,000 people to town and $200 million to the local economy. As Houston Public Media's Rebecca Noel reported this week, while still less than the estimated $270 million generated by last year's NCAA men's college basketball Final Four, it is a tidy haul for Houston's first time hosting this particular event. And it may well not be the last time. College football playoff executive director Bill Hancock remarked how he's never seen anything like Houston's small town spirit in a big city. Houston gets high marks for hosting this week's college football playoff championship game, and plans are in the works to bid for it again in the future. Is this good, bad, or ugly? Vivian.
Oh, it's definitely good. We didn't hit that $270 million mark, but we certainly would have hit it if Texas had made it to that championship because we were watching the prices and what was happening, the ticket prices. And as soon as Texas lost that playoff game, it's like, boom, the price of the tickets fell from like $2,000 to $750. Kind of bummed by that, but I think it's terrific that we had a great game, that people had a good time. It's great to put Houston on the map with these types of events.
All right, good, bad, or ugly, Raul.
Good, although I feel like it's a backhanded compliment to call this small town spirit. I was thinking about where that might come from. One of my neighbors commented that I think it has to do with the fact that you get stuck at railroad crossings and it's still a big city. Now, as far as events go, I mean, certainly this is a big thing, but we have a much bigger one around the corner with the World Cup coming. And my son Noah is really excited about that. And he was saying, some of this is small potatoes compared to the global exposure that this is going to create. Going back to the small town spirit, I do think in some ways Houston is a little behind on some of this. I mean, granted, we have the facilities, no doubt, but outside of that, there's not a river walk. There's not that kind of attraction. I was thinking, what could be the equivalent of the Battle of Roses parade? Something like the Azalea parade or something that, Houston needs along with that. Again, the weather's a little unpredictable during this time as we experience. By the way, has everybody washed their car already after that hailstorm?
No, still on the to-do list.
There is the art car parade. I mean,
we can move it to February.
Yeah. Anyhow, good, bad, or ugly, Charles.
It's good. Houston hosted the Super Bowl 20 years ago, and the city was lauded for that at the time. And I think since then we have a pretty solid track record of doing a good job hosting various large sporting events with a second Super Bowl, Final Four, NCAA Final Four.
Couple of World Series.
Yeah. I mean, that's not something that you plan years in advance.
Well, true.
Yes, the city has proven itself as a desirable location for this kind of event. We're also now bidding for the World Baseball Classic in 2026, which would be earlier in the year than the World Cup would be. And while it is true that the weather around here is unpredictable at this time of year, I bet you'd ask all those Michigan fans, even with the rain and the cold that we had, it's still a heck of a lot better than it is in Ann Arbor. So, yeah, good all around, and I hope they get more.
Panel, in local celebrity news, we need to talk about Jeremy, an African spurred tortoise adopted last year by the owners of Blue Heron Farm in Waller. As the Houston Chronicle's Cheval Price reported this week, Jeremy has gained a bit of a following on the old socials, thanks in part to an explicit nickname Blue Heron's Lisa and Christian Seeger have given him, which for FCC purposes we'll say is Bleeping Jeremy, a nickname spurred by Jeremy's tendency to destroy fences and repeatedly escape from the farm. That is apparently a common trait among these kinds of tortoises. They are territorial and like to roam. Seegers have had mixed success tracking him by placing an Apple AirTag on his shell. Jeremy's apparently become adept at removing it, though just how is not clear. The next time you visit Waller's Blue Heron Farm, you may get the chance to meet a 30-year-old sulcata tortoise named Bleeping Jeremy if he hasn't made another escape attempt. Is this good, bad, or ugly? Raul.
Okay, hear me out. It's good because what I see here, and I'm going to include all of y'all in this, Vivian, Charlie, Craig, like this is our opportunity to have the next great escape film, right? This is Stalag 17. This is Chicken Run. I was trying to think of which
I'm glad you mentioned
movie.
Chicken Run because that's where my mind went.
Okay. Or I was also thinking Free Willy. This could be Free Jeremy, that the really slow remake of that film. So I think of this as good. It's certainly showing the spirit of the farm that Blue Heron is creating, and it's great seeing that that's bringing folks out there. But I really think this is a great opportunity to start our production company with this story.
I'm going to have the music from The Great Escape in my head all day now. Charles.
I agree, it's good, and I might start a little smaller and just say let's get a Jeremy cam, put some cameras out there. Maybe we'll figure out how he sheds the AirTag. It's a giant tortoise escape artist. How can you go wrong? I mean, I would totally devote a browser tab to watching that. So yeah, thumbs up.
Vivian.
Yeah, it's a hilarious story, and you look at the picture of him just kind of like propped up in that truck as they're trucking him back to the farm after they picked him up from his last escape. I do worry. I don't know much about these animals. It's such a large and noble-looking animal, truly impressive. And so I worry a little bit about animal cruelty. I hope they take good care of him because I don't want him running loose out there because we've got a big freeze coming.
For some value of the word running, right?
Yeah. Well, trucking loose out there.
I also hope they give him a baseball that he can throw against the wall while he plans his next escape. Vivian Ho is a health economist at Rice University and Baylor College of Medicine. Raul Ramos is an associate professor of history at the University of Houston. And Charles Kuffner writes the Off the Cuff political blog. Vivian, Raul, Charles, thank you very much.
Oh, thank you, Craig.
Thank you, Craig.